Good.
And about increase in frequency of the buses. I call them Google buses, but they don't have a name.
Okay.
But these are the large buses, and because we live on a Rastadero road.
Does the Google buses take Rastadero road?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there is a bus.
Say Google bus, but
it doesn't say Google buses. It doesn't say anything really. And every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it's not just in the morning, in the evening, 1 o'clock, 1:15, or 1:30, 1:45.
We're on Rastadero. What's the cross street?
We are near Suzanne Drive.
Okay.
And
so it's closer to
El Camino.
It's opposite the Tan
that's right.
Plaza, the tall apartment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something we noticed, and we also, our neighbors, we were talking to them, and it seems like, people who are living on Rastadero have noticed, and this has happened fairly recently.
When you say fairly recently, how, like 6 months ago, last month?
About a year.
About
we
a
are
year.
noticing, an increase in the bus, the buses.
Do you know where they're going?
They're both directions.
Oh, both directions. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Both directions. So it's kind of surprising, and I was just wondering what's going on because,
So where we are? Yeah. So this is Charleston, Rastadero, and so lately somewhere here.
Right here.
So we were kind of wondering what's going on because, it's really great that they have people. They bus in people,
better than like
less,
20 cars. Yeah.
But the glasses are all tinted, so you don't know how many people are inside. And what I've heard, and this again is just 1 or 2 people, that the buses are not crowded at all, because they do their work and so on.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that it's really helping. And if it can be taken up with the companies, that will be really helpful. I mean, they can. We have on that street, we have several schools. We have children walking all the time, and especially at the school times.
Sure.
And if they could take Page Mill, maybe that might be a little bit better option.
Page Mill instead of
Rastadero.
Okay.
That would, from a company's point of view, that might be a little bit.
Because from 280. Page Mill would be the more logical route versus Rastadero, because then they have to go down Foothill.
Yeah.
And then, but if it's really Google, why would they not keep going down all the way to like?
I'm trying to think who it could be.
Yeah.
Whenever we Google, there are companies on the hill that what's the Hillview.
Hillview.
Okay.
So it could be nice to have the buses, but where are they going in the afternoons? So it was when I sent the email. I'm wondering what's going on. And if there can be a study, maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
what's going to happen.
It's kind of hard to do a study because you would have to hire a private investigator or anything and track the buses to figure out where they come from, where they go. Right? How else would you do it? You can't just do a hose there and count it, right? How would you do a study on this, right?
Yeah.
You would have to.
The buses.
Yeah, it would pull them over or something, but you would have to that's one way is write down license plate number. Actually, that's one thing. Okay, actually, that's one thing. If it's easy for you to do.
Yeah, I could take the pictures and.
Or the bus
send
number,
the
right?
Bus, and send it. That's something I can do.
When you say they increased, how much has increased by? What was it before? What is it now?
Before it was nothing. 2 years back, I don't remember seeing too many buses at all. All we saw was the VTA transportation, those kind of things. But now it's very, very regular and increasing. Absolutely, it's going up. So, mostly my intention was to bring it to the notice of the city and to see if, it can be followed up by suggesting some alternative routes.
I think the first thing is to where buses coming from and where they're going. So that's probably the hard part, right? Because without that, you don't even know who to contact, right? You can't even do a traffic count, right?
Do you guys have a lot of people who are expressing their frustration too?
I've spoken only to my neighbors.
Okay.
I have not spoken because we usually have get together in the summer with the neighbors.
Okay.
And and there is a bus actually that stands on the Briones Park and most evenings. It looks like an office bus, and it's standing there. I don't know why it's standing there, because there are no offices there. But because buses never write their names or their destination, or the boards are just blank, there's no way to know, and you can't just stop the bus.
Yeah. And you're saying that they're every 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's really it's like every 10 to 15 minutes.
Like throughout the whole day?
Throughout the whole weekday.
Really?
And it is at 1 o'clock, it's at 2 o'clock, it's at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Going both ways.
Both ways.
It's probably just a bus company that, as opposed to one company, right?
Yeah,
it has to be a multitude.
I don't know. But
I don't know. Yeah.
But okay, so there's a couple ways of looking at this. One way of looking at it is a lot of buses, right? Which is, I can understand it being frustrating. The other way of looking at it is, what if you didn't have the bus, right? What if you just had 20 cars going down that road? How would you guys feel about that? If you had 20 like instead of a bus, you had 20 cars going down the road, or 40 cars. How would you which is a better situation?
I'm bothered if the buses are empty.
Okay.
And they're going that frequently.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just curious to know, because I do know that the one thing that buses do is they take a lot of cars off the road. So
but you already, that road has like how many,
cars
10,000
cars haven't reduced it.
Yeah, cars are going, and the buses. I have to tell you, my house, it's an old house, it rattles.
Yeah,
that's I know even inside my house that there is a bus going, because I can feel the shaking going on.
Everything's going right every 15 minutes.
Exactly. Sometimes if I'm
windows.
my windows are
so
I would honestly prefer cars to buses.
Yeah, my mom's house, she lives in San Diego, and she lives if this is the airplane strip, she lives right on the takeoff. And so when they, when my mom's house, it's like a bomb goes off on the airplane. You can't hear anything. It's just like the whole house is literally shaking. So I can understand what you're talking about. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I guess what would you like to see happen? To ban all buses on Astrodero? Is that what you're thinking?
No,
about?
I think it would be really great. An ideal thing would be to have buses in the morning commute time and in the evening, and to somehow and afternoons. How the kids are driving on that road. If you are in Gun, you've probably seen it on that road. They are going, they're biking in twos. And there's all kinds of things going on that road. Definitely not in the afternoon, where there are all these kids walking from Terman, from Gun, and they are biking and so on. So
Actually,
if you want to add something.
No, I agree.
Matthew, you go along that.
That's correct. They go up the road every day.
Okay, how many buses do you see?
I don't pay attention. I focus on getting to school, not the buses.
You like?
Yes. So it's mild. So it's not bad at all.
Okay. I was just curious. Okay. Okay. So you would like to see some sort of ordinance on Raspadero saying that no buses except morning and evening.
What time frame? Can you use a more specific hour potentially, just so the language is more clear? Between 10 and 4, no buses.
Something like that would be great.
I do have a funny story to say. Like one time we were driving a Raspadero and we stopped at the Wilkie traffic light, and then this big bus comes speeding through the red light without stopping.
See,
the red light didn't exist on Wilkie Way.
We've seen that, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's no crossing at the time.
They drive also fast, right? They drive fast.
How many of your neighbors do you think would rather have? Because let's just look at this practically, right? So if you get rid of the buses, you might have 20 more cars, right? So every bus, you get 20 more cars, 20 to 40 more cars.
So that's the other thing. We don't know. That's what we were saying. We don't know there are 20 people in the bus.
Well, I would be very surprised if there are 20 people in a bus.
That's what's also happening, because people want to give so many options to employees.
Yeah.
You come in at any time of the day. we'll make sure that there is some transportation available. So they might be just even morning, evening. You can assume there might be a reasonable number of people, 30. But afternoon, really, the 20 people are they?
I have no idea.
You know, that's what. So that's what you have to.
But I would assume that these buses cost money to operate, and I would assume that whoever's paying for this would want to make sure they're fully loaded, because if they could get away with smaller buses, it'd be, I would imagine they would because it'd be a lot cheaper.
But
it would be interesting if you talk to some Google people who are taking the
and we
some
don't know
buses.
if Google, could be Tesla.
Yeah, but
shipping between Fremont, they have a office here.
We talked to somebody in Tesla, right? In Google, who said that they were not very crowded at all.
Yeah, just 2-3 people.
Yeah, so it might be good to kind of talk to a few people who take these buses and find out, how crowded they are. But I don't know how to do a scientific study on that.
Or, factual study. Get the facts.
But if the buses were fully loaded, you'd be okay with them?
If they were, we'd be.
Because you rather have a bus than 20 to 40 cars.
Yeah, and also if they could just drive slowly, that would be.
Do they break the speed limit?
Yeah.
Well, that's a different issue, right? If they're breaking the speed limit, then that should be fixed, right?
I mean, especially sometimes they have for larger vehicles go slow or something like that,
Oh, within the speed limit, whatever.
It's 25
school zone
is the speed limit, so go slower. But preferably, if they could change, go through page mill, that would be really great.
Yeah, I mean, if they're coming from SF or you would think that it would be through page mill, right? So I think it's probably the probably right, probably through Tesla, right? Or one of the
could be
because there's no freeway exit there, so it has to be. You would do page mill unless. But
even from Tesla, I mean, the page mill they can do page mill.
I don't know, but I mean, there's a reason why they're taking that, because otherwise, why would you do that? I mean, I can understand if because 280 doesn't have an exit at Rasadero, right? There's no exit there, so all you have is a Foothill Expressway. And then if it's Google, you would think you keep going down Foothill Expressway, right? Because that's a faster way to get to Google than to go to Rasadero.
Maybe we should just follow a bus one day.
That would be good. So
our own private investment.
That's right. Yeah.
No, just stop them.
Yeah.
Just drive and see where they're going.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we got it.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you so much. We just wanted to bring it to your attention mostly.
Yeah. No,
So
for next steps, it's probably community, getting more voices.
Yeah.
Because they're just the louder you are, probably the more
Definitely.
likely. And also trying to figure out who, because we can't really figure out who's the bus. Because it would be easy for Greg to email someone and say Google, can you just change your route?
Yeah.
But if we don't know,
but
who it makes it
if
tough.
you do meet with company executives around the area,
Mhm.
then it might be something that you may ask them.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I think we
if
can ask them, but
you could do on
this
your
is
end.
this is a very specific street, a very specific situation. So I don't know. I mean, if I do, I would certainly ask.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you very much for coming.
Do they fill out one of these?
Yeah. Yeah. I did.
Okay, great.
Hey Greg, how are you?
Good. Long time no talk, right?
How you doing?
Good.
Hi, I'm Andrew, by the way.
Andrew, how you doing?
Do you need a card? I can't remember.
I don't need a card.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
good.
Okay, this is also a Facebook Live, by the way. So
It's what?
It's a Facebook Live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
It's being broadcast. So just want to let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely did not know that.
Just want to let you know.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to meet with
Not
you.
a lot of people watching though.
I just wanted to meet with you
Sure.
about 2755 El Camino.
Sure.
And
I haven't actually looked at it, but I heard about it.
yes, and just to tell you kind of where we are with it.
Sure.
The challenging part that we have with this is that we had a study session with council members in September of last year. So
For my time.
yeah, so I'm dealing with a different council now.
Yeah.
And, we had a PTC hearing where it was it was a kind of mixed reviews. I don't know if you know about the PTC and the outcome.
We haven't got this. I haven't looked at this in detail yet.
Okay, so we had a PTC study session in June. So we had our study session for City Council last September. We submitted a formal application in late November, early December, and then we have gone through multiple rounds with staff, and we had an ARB study session and a PTC study session back to back on a Wednesday, Thursday morning. And the outcome of the PTC is Asher Wildfogle, he was not in attendance, and Doria Suma had to recuse herself because of a letter she co-authored prior to her being on PTC. So she's had to recuse herself. So there is 6 PTC members, and without getting into too much detail, my takeaway from that PTC hearing is that as of now, it's not definitive whether or not we would get a recommendation.
Oh, they didn't take a vote?
Well, it couldn't. It was a study session.
Oh,
So it was no action item.
I see. So, what was the feedback?
The feedback, well, from multiple people. I mean, some people were in favor of it, saying, I think it's good, this is housing, they got to work on some things. And then some of the feedback was, too big, too dense, not enough parking, the typical things that would hear.
So with the 6, what would you, is it going to come back for an action item?
Well, that's a decision we have to make right now. So I have to make a decision because right now is when I have to start spending a lot more money.
Okay.
And I'm unclear. I know you can't give me kind of like, okay, here's how I would vote. I know you can't say that, but what I'm kind of looking for is some guidance.
Have you met with the PTC members?
I've reached out to all of them, and I've met with a few of them individually.
Okay, great.
A couple in like a group setting, and some I never heard back from.
Okay. You're doing all the right things. That's definitely what you should be doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to do as much as I can of this, and as you can see on that sheet, I'm doing the same with city council members.
That's great.
As well.
Yeah.
And so I need to make a decision on what I need. Like, do I just cut my losses?
Yeah.
Do I see this as an uphill battle, or do I move forward? And in looking at the current city council, 2 of the members are former planning commissioners.
Oh.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so my understanding of the way, kind of logistically, how things work, if you go to PTC to get a recommendation, you get a recommendation. At that point, ARB can give a recommendation.
Well, sometimes ARB could get first.
They can.
Oh, really?
They
I've seen in the past they've given recommendations before PTC.
So, well, hold on one second, because maybe you're talking about a different way of doing it, but a PTC gives a recommendation, at which point then ARB can give a recommendation, and then it goes to city council if necessary for recommendation.
It depends on what you're talking about.
If PTC doesn't give a recommendation, it can't go to ARB for a recommendation. It jumps right up to city council. City council can say, we now are going to disregard what PTC says, and go to ARB for a recommendation. So I'm looking at this thing from PTC, and I always expect the worst, hope for the best, because it's my money at stake, and my time, and everyone else's time.
Let me just kind of first say that you're trying to invest in the community, right? You're trying to do development, right? Which is, in fact, you're putting a lot on the line to invest in the community. So first of all, let me say thank you for that, right?
Okay.
So I appreciate that, because I know it for you personally, right? It means a lot, and you're trying to make things better. You have a vacant parking lot, right? And you're trying to do something on it. So I totally understand that.
Okay. Okay, good. So that's so there's a very real a scenario where we could go to PTC for a recommendation, and we can get a no action, where it's a 3-3 tie.
Yeah, but you can still go to city council and appeal that.
So at that point, that would go get kicked up right to city council. So my like one of the reasons I want to meet with you was how would a former planning commission review that? I mean, part of your platform, or part of Adrian's platform was, they didn't like how the city council disregarded what the planning commission said.
Sure.
It's like, we either give a recommendation or don't.
Sure.
And then the city council would just do whatever they wanted to do.
Well, I mean, my opinion of this is that, so I can show you. So this is agenda for Monday, right? We have like this much stuff, right, to look at, right? This is like for tomorrow, right? And it's hard to be an expert on all of this, right? I mean, really, it's really difficult, right? So actually, this is not for tomorrow; it's for next Monday. But anyways, there's a lot of stuff in here, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing with the planning commission is that they can spend the time on this that the council can never spend.
Yeah.
Right? And so they can make very informed decisions. So for me, I'm kind of a big advocate that we should rely heavier on the PTC. Now, a lot of my fellow council members do not agree with that. Right? A lot of them think that the PTC recommendation is made. To me, actually, it matters, right? Because they're going to spend the time that we can never spend, right? They're going to be very focused on it. So in that respect, I would say that I do look at that, and I think to me, it's an important recommendation, right? How they will vote, I don't know, right? I mean, I haven't actually looked at your project, so I don't really know. I know a little bit about it from reading the press, but I haven't really looked at it in detail, right? I mean, not like I would have if I was on the planning commission still, right? I would have, scrutinized it pretty closely. But so I guess, are you asking how they will vote, or are you asking?
I'm not asking how you vote because you can't really talk about that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say, like, just as a former planning commissioner, what I'm hearing from you is that if that you want to that you can't be an expert on everything, and so if the planning commission gives you some sort of, they give you kind of either a no action, like not a recommendation, or a recommendation, that you're going to rely heavily on that because they've looked at it in more detail.
Yeah, I would. Now, I do look at the recommendation if there's something, if there's a flaw in it, or if there's something which I thought maybe they missed, I'm just not going to be absolutely yes, but probably, unless there's something unless there's something that I find that is like lacking. Right? Yeah. So so I don't know what do you think the PTC is going to do?
As of right now, I've got my work cut out, but I see it going to be very challenging to get 4 of the necessary votes.
So if it's a stalemate, that's also something that means that the council needs to decide, right?
Well, from my understanding, and I'm researching this, but to get it's either you get a recommendation or you.
Yeah, but we look at the votes, right? I mean, so if it's like
no, but it'd be like, think about it like let's say for some reason some member of the city council had to recuse themselves for my project. Then there's 8 people, not 9.
Yeah.
But we would still need 5 votes. So even if it was 4-4, you can't.
That's true.
So the way I look at it, maybe it's the wrong way, but unless I'm getting 4 on PTC, I'm not getting a recommendation. So, I mean, that's what I want to kind of just tell you, kind of what's going on with me right now, and I need to make a decision on that. And then I want to tell you just real quickly what our project, like what we kind of, and this won't take long, it'll just be kind of a general, but you can see, I want you to know what we're doing to kind of, one of the things when you and I spoke on the phone a while ago was, neighborhood buy-in is big for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's what I'm saying. If you follow within the ordinance of what that parcel allows, you don't need neighborhood buy-in. It's your right? You buy property, you have certain property rights, right? So that you don't need neighborhood buy-in per se. But if there's some variance you want, right?
Well, yeah. So this site is zoned public facility.
Yeah. So if there's a variance you want, then that's when you need neighborhood buy-in. Otherwise, you don't really need it.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends.
So our neighbor, we've met with the College Terrace Association, had a, you know those people very well, obviously. I had a good meeting with them. Obviously there were some people there that are are very anti-development, and then there were some people that came up afterwards and said, I love what you're doing. I think it's a great project.
Sure.
And so I think, but from that perspective, you will see people that are against us and people that are in favor of us.
Just like that for every project.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not unusual.
Yes. And then we tried to reach out to the Ventura Association. I guess the president who runs that association, I haven't heard back from.
Is that Becky?
Yes, and she has. She's come out at our study session and our city council session and our PTC study session, not in favor of our project. So
How about Evergreen?
I never heard back from them either. So we've met with the condo association behind us and had a very good meeting with them. They obviously have some concerns, just given it's right next door to them. But for the most part, again, like during the meeting, the negative people are the ones that ask you a lot of questions.
Of course.
Then afterwards, you walk out of there and people will pull you aside and say, hey, by the way, I'd love to see you do this project.
Well, here's the deal. Most of the people that attend meetings are negative people, right? The majority, the people who are happy usually don't attend meetings like this. So
Yeah.
you usually just get the negative. Usually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So around the city council, this is the project that we kind of
Sure.
proposed. It was 2.24 FAR, 60 smaller apartment units with 45 parking stalls.
Mhm.
So that's what we initially proposed. And then it was using mechanical lifts in the garage. We're going down one level of parking. And when we resubmitted and went to the PTC study session, everything was the same with the exception of the parking. We increased the parking from 45 stalls for 60 units to 65 stalls for 60 units. So we jumped it 20 spots. And then what we're currently thinking of resubmitting, if we get and so the feedback that we've gotten was it's underparked, it's too big, it's too many units, it's too dense. So there's no guest parking, no Uber Lyft parking, which I think was a very valid argument because we're trying to build this project
What's Uber Lyft?
with Uber, like a
Lyft,
Lyft, like the driving service, like trying to, so you have this project that's underparked per city code, and
but I don't know if you know this, but I think Pedro and El Camino is the busiest intersection in Palo Alto.
yes,
It's number one.
yes, I do know that, and we've had a traffic study done. This project will have very little impact.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I was thinking, right?
Yeah, very little impact,
Yeah.
and definitely a lot less impact than what was previously proposed as an office building. And so, but we have a project that's under parked per city code, and so where are the people that are going to have deliveries and
Sure.
park? So, but anyways, that's what we had. This is what we're thinking about doing right now. So now we're up to. So this would be the garage now, where instead of coming in and going right down, we go all the way around, and this way we get some short-term Uber, Lyft, Amazon, UPS parking here. So I think that's very valuable, and it goes all the way through it and around. But because of that, and so we were at a 2.24 FAR. Our next proposal is going to be a 2.0 FAR. So we're coming down a number. Our number of units will go from 60 to 58, and our parking will go up to 69 spots. So the number goes up, the unit count goes down, so the ratio gets better. And then we are putting this was a comment too about having some rooftop space. So on the top there, we're putting some rooftop because we're taking it out from here. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that what we're hearing, I can't make it a 10-unit project, but I'm hearing that it's too big, so I'm going from 60 to 58, 2.24 FIR.
Which commissioners said it was too big?
Ed Lowing, he had a quote. It's actually a pretty good quote. He says it's too big, it's underparked, too tall. On the busiest intersection in Palo Alto, what's not to like about it? So it was just kind of like it's got everything that going against it. What's not to like about it? It was a negative comment, but it was and then Presmec, he made the comment that he'd like to see it be, a fully parked, a lot of affordable units and retail on the whole ground floor. It's not feasible.
Okay, and what about the other four members?
Well, Asher Walpole wasn't there. Dory had to recuse herself.
Okay, I guess it was like 5 members.
And Susan Monk, she wasn't there either.
Oh.
I met with her previously. I met with her and Doria previously, and then Michael and Eric seemed more open to it. And then just a couple of things about it. So right now the city of Palo Alto, unlike a lot of other cities, they have one parking kind of zoning code that's for the entire city. So if you build an apartment building up off Arastadero or wherever, it has the same parking requirements as University and Emerson.
Well, does PTOD though, right?
This is but this is within a half mile of transit.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the current code in Palo Alto has the same parking requirements, whether you're up in the Stanford Research Park, or whether you're down off of 101, or whether you're in the University and Ramona in downtown Palo Alto. Same parking requirements. So it seems like it shouldn't be a one size fits all, in my opinion.
Well, the PTOD is supposed to make it so that you get some of that parking relief if you're within transit.
There's no code that you can refer to that says that that's the case.
Okay.
It's like a program.
Yeah.
But there's no code. Like other cities, for example, Redwood City, San Mateo, Burlingame, even downtown Mountain View, in their downtown, they have separate parking requirements for their downtown locations or transit-oriented locations, because those people are more likely.
I thought PTOD gave you some bonuses because
you're talking about affordable housing bonuses on site.
Not just affordable housing. Okay, but I'm sure you're working with staff, so you probably know. You've probably done all that you do.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I want to talk to you about on this project. I wasn't able to get your feedback at the city council study session back in September, and so I got the feedback from the folks that were there and that are currently on council, and so I kind of know who I need to work on, who I know I'm never going to get a vote from, and who I'm hoping will still support our project.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to. I know you can't tell me what you can do, but
I haven't actually looked at it too. So that's the two things. But okay, yeah, so I haven't looked at your project at all, right? No, this is the business intersection in Palo Alto, so I mean, there's a lot of traffic there already, so almost any project's not going to have that much of a difference on the traffic. Right?
Well, actually, from that standpoint, we are deeding part of our property to the county, because Page Mills is a county.
Yeah.
So we're deeding a part of our land,
Yeah.
so that the county in future can add a right-hand turn lane going west on Page Mill.
Okay.
So it would actually improve the traffic.
Well, I was going to say that, the percentage difference your project will make to the current traffic is probably pretty minimal, I would imagine.
Extremely, yes.
Yeah, it's now the only problem could be if access, right? If people can't get in or it causes traffic jams, then that's a different story, right? But otherwise, the number of cars that it contributes is going to be pretty minute, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So now, if versus if that was like some sort of super quiet street and suddenly you put a project there, that's a different story, right? Because then suddenly what that project contributes is actually very significant to what's there right now. So, so that's what I'm thinking in terms of a very busy street. I don't know if it's too big or not. I have no idea. I haven't actually studied it, but I can tell you this though, like, you know that AT&T store on El Camino in Pedro? I'm told that's one of the top AT&T stores in the country in terms of revenue.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, it's like someone told me it's number one in the country. So in general, retail does very well with lots of traffic, right? That intersection has like that intersection is amazing for traffic, right? And so versus for residential, putting that against traffic, people don't like that, right? Nobody likes to live on a busy street. So so those are I haven't looked at the project, but I mean if I just think about those two things. So I think first of all, because it's such a busy intersection, the project's not going to have that much of an effect unless you just ingress and egress are totally mixed up, right? Which I don't think the city will allow. But the fact that this is a busy intersection, you generally want uses that like traffic, right? Versus uses that don't like traffic. Residential usually doesn't like traffic, generally.
Well, that's where I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit. Like, there's a lot of people that have, 3 kids and a dog, and they want the white picket fence in the backyard. But there's also, there's over 23,000 jobs in the Stanford Research Park. There's not a lot of there's a lot of those people that commute from far away.
Sure.
So, I mean, our target and the way we're designing these units, like, we're not going to, how do I say this? Like, we're not going to discriminate against anybody. Like, we have to follow the fair housing practices. But we're designing these units for people that are looking for a place to live close to where they work and don't want the hassle of a bigger. I mean, there's a lot of those people.
Oh no, I'm with you on that. I think small units people awesome, but I'm just saying in general, right? Residential doesn't get much by having more traffic generally, right? Doesn't make things better, right? To have lots and lots of traffic. In fact, it's almost inversely proportional, right? Less traffic usually more people like it, right? This is for residential generally.
It's actually good for apartments because you get good visibility. But for renting, I mean, we have a project on Middlefield.
Okay. Well, you know this better than me. But I'm just telling you abstractly.
Yes, it's good for retail. The problem with retail on this location is for the price that we have to pay for the land, it's not feasible.
Well, I'm not saying it has to be.
And I can't park it. The parking requirements.
No, I hear you. So there are uses, like if you think about land use, there are land uses that likes a lot of traffic, and there's land uses that don't like a lot of traffic, right? So residential, I generally say, is not the use that likes a lot of traffic, generally. Could be wrong, but generally. Retail generally likes a lot of traffic, right? Generally. In fact, a retail location that doesn't have a lot of traffic usually is not a very good retail location. Hotels actually generally is pretty good to have traffic, right? Because you would get a lot of visibility, so that's actually pretty good. Office, I would say it's kind of a wash, right? Probably doesn't help you, probably doesn't hurt you. So that's a natural fit, right? But yeah, I haven't really studied the project enough to know, but it was just in terms of high-level principles, right? That's what you could think of, right? In terms of like what for me, if the community says, yeah, let's go for it.
But you're not. If the communities, half the people are going to say they want it, half the people say they don't want it. I mean, you know that better than anybody.
Well, I don't know, right? I mean, I think there are a lot of people who would like to have more housing in Palo Alto. So I don't know, right? I don't know if that's true. I think, when you have community meetings, you usually get what I call the Palo Alto 500. Right? You get the same people So I don't know, right? I don't know, like, so when I ran for election last year, I thought it was all going to be about development, right? I thought it was all going to be about people for or against development. But when you actually knock on doors and talk to like ordinary people, not the people that attend, hang around City Hall, but this ordinary people, most people don't care. most people care about like, did my trash get picked up, right? Or like, how come my utility rates are going up so much? Or like really mundane, or tree rats, right? I mean, very mundane type of thing. That's what people care about, right? But if you go on a poll online, you hang out at City Hall, you know, go to neighbor associations, it's all about development. But the reality is not true. I mean, that's not representative.
So what you're telling me is that to make sure that you get support from people in Palo Alto.
Like, let me put it this way: if you, for any variance, if the community buys into the variance for a project, I have no problem with it, right? Because that's what we want, right?
So if you're advising me, what you're telling me is that I need to go out there and make sure that I get either written or verbal support from people in Palo Alto for our project.
I think if you do that, right? If you like literally, and I think getting support from someone that lives like, on the edges of Palo Alto has not, this project doesn't impact them at all, right? It's kind of one thing. But if you get like the condo association next to you saying like, thumbs up, right?
You're not. I mean, so I mean, they've been clear. The College Terrace Neighborhood Association has been clear. Like, we as an association, we do not endorse or not endorse.
You should go to individual members, right?
Yes, we would go to individual members and say, hey, would you be willing to write a letter of support?
Or just, that's maybe too much work, but maybe just get them to do a petition, right? So get a petition and say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. Do you support, not support? Because I think, here's my guess, is if you show overwhelming community support for this, right? I'm not talking about the Palo Alto 500, right? The people that hang around City Hall. I'm talking about like broad-based support, right? Like, and the reason why I can tell you why there's a big difference between the Palo Alto 500 and the broad-based community, because when you start knocking on doors, you ask people what they care about, development is not the number one thing. I mean, you think it is, right? Because you read Palo Alto online, you think, oh, it's all about development, but it's not, right? There's a lot of other things people care about, right? Like if you ask my wife, like, what is her big problem? Well, her big problem is that the trash company that export trash ripped off our cover, right? They never replaced it. So that's like, my wife doesn't care about whether you build a big building or a small building. She doesn't care, right? What she cares about is like, can you pick my trash without ripping off the cover, right? Exactly. So I would say that to really understand the community, I would, I know it takes time, but I would try to get a petition of the folks that of the surround of the if you get like, I know you always have postcards, right? But if you like 1,000 or 2,000 foot radius from your project, really like knock the doors, right? And get people to sign petitions. And first of all, I think you'd be surprised that that there's more diversity of opinions in terms of how much you think people care about development is. And for people that don't hang out at City Hall, the amount of people who care about development is actually quite low. Right? So that's the first thing you probably have to realize when you start finding people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing you could do, and I don't know if you've already done that or you already have a good sense of. I don't know.
I mean, we weren't going to do a petition. I mean, this is the first I've heard or thought of that, or I've heard someone mention it. We are, like the people that are coming up to us after meetings saying, I think this is I mean, the difference between a neighborhood association and like the public hearings is the people that show up for the public hearings are the Palo Alto 500 that are there to be negative. When you go to the neighborhood associations or the condo association, like people are there to talk about why the roof is leaking or what's going on with this particular neighborhood issue.
Sure.
And so they don't, like you're saying, they're not there to fight our project or care about our project. They're there for some other reason. And those are the ones that come up and say, hey, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm writing down their names. I'm making a list and getting them to write a letter of support.
You could even be more direct than that. Right? You could and it's probably not a bad idea to knock on the doors, right, around that project area to get a feel to what people think. Because I think that a lot of council members are very driven by what the community says, right? And so if you find that there's pretty good community support for this, I think the council would support it. That's what my guess is. I mean, not everyone on council, but yeah. But I think the council would support it, right? But if there's overwhelming, and I'm not talking about just people that attend the council meeting for PC meeting. If you find there's the total opposite, then it's gonna be hard, right?
So thank you. So one other thing I just wanted to mention to you before we finish up is, we look at a lot of sites in downtown, and right now, I believe housing is an issue in the whole Bay Area.
The crisis in California in general, right?
There's just not enough housing. It's really expensive, and there's not enough in the right locations.
Yeah.
And that's what, in my opinion, what impacts traffic. Like, if you put housing in the right locations, that should decrease traffic over the long term.
Sure.
And right now, if I were to buy a 10,000-foot lot in downtown Palo Alto, I could potentially, with the use of transferable development rights, I could take a site and I could build a 30,000 square foot office or commercial building with retail on the ground floor or whatever, and not have to go underground one bit for parking.
Sure.
In pay into the parking district.
Sure.
If I wanted to build residential, I can only build 1.0 FAR, and I would have to fully park it on site.
Yeah, maybe I think there's also like mixed use, right? If you mixed use, you get some benefit as well, right?
But I think we'd all agree downtown Palo Alto or California Avenue is a very, very, that's the best location for residential because it's close to transit, right?
Sure.
A lot of those sites are really small, so it's not feasible to go underground for parking. And so I can take a 7,500 square foot site in downtown Palo Alto where you cannot go underground. It physically is not possible. You can go down 4 levels and you get 4 spaces type of thing. You just can't do it. But I could go build an office building with 3x the FAR, but I could only build 1.0 FAR, and I have no opportunity to buy into the parking district for residential. That is a problem. And
well, I mean, this is one of the things that precipitates the housing crisis, right? Is funky rules, right?
Well, it just doesn't. Everybody in the way council and PTC has talked about the office cap, like they don't want to see. They'd like to limit the amount of office space and encourage more housing. It's kind of the message that I think the community's gotten from council and PTC. The majority of them is housing is an issue, and it doesn't make sense to me that there's not a way for residential to buy into a parking permit program in downtown and California Avenue, but office can. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see that. And if you look in the housing element, it's shown up as a program, but it's never been done further.
That's interesting. So if like for this project, if this could bind to the parking assessment district, then this would open up a lot of possibilities.
Well, we're outside of the parking assessment district. We're outside. I mean, I'm talking kind of separate from this project. I'm talking just in general. There's 3 things that don't make sense. One of them is that for office buildings, you can buy the parking district, but residential, you cannot. And then you cannot use the transfer of development rights for residential, but you can for office. So I could buy a 10,000 foot parcel, and I could apply for a 30,000 foot office building and be within the code. Where on residential, I could only go to 1.0 there.
Sure.
And then the third thing is the density per unit. If you take all the residential zoning codes, RM 15, RM 30, RM 40, the average square footage of those units ranges between like 900 and 1,200 square feet. Those are 2 and 3 bedroom apartments.
Sure.
You got to assume a developer is going to max out their density.
Sure.
That's just,
of course,
that's just what they're going to do. So they're not going to choose to build a 300 or 400 square foot units when they can max out.
Of course.
And so you're limited by it. So if you build an office building, you're limited by FAR. That's it.
Yeah.
FAR and height. Because you can buy into the parking district, and and you can and you're limited by the FAR. For residential, you're limited by height, parking, FAR, and density. So and that's why you see these mixed use in downtown Palo Alto. They're office buildings. Then on the top, you see these massive penthouses that rent for $40,000 a month, and they're usually the second homes for some rich person. Is that solving the housing crisis? Is that helping?
Yeah. No,
it doesn't. So those, I'd mentioned this to a few other council members, and I've talked to people on how to implement this and take a colleague's memo. I don't know how to. I don't know what else I can do to help.
Residential TDRs, essentially, or that, or like.
Well, it's three things. It's either. I think the residential TDRs are part of the housing element as a program, so you can have staff implement that program. One way I understand it, but the other ones, from what I understand, it would take a colleague's memo just to talk about those three things.
Yeah.
You guys discuss it at the council hearing, and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. So residential TDR, buying to parking district. What was the third thing?
The density per unit.
Oh yeah.
Eliminating the density per unit and making it strictly an FAR base. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the one size fits all when it relates to parking.
Yeah.
I see you nodding over there. It makes sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm from New York, so I'm a little biased about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good.
So that's all I got for you.
Well, thank you.
If you have any other feedback for me, I'll work on the community buy-in,
Yeah, I think that's important.
and I'll do the best I can with that.
Not that easy.
Other organizations like Palo Alto Forward,
Yeah, you can, actually, you can contact the Palo Alto Forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably one thing. These are very.
they have a pretty big outreach, like 2,000.
No, they brought, like, for our city council study session, we got, well over 100 letters of support of our project.
Yeah, they're a good organization.
So,
Okay.
Greg, thank you.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. I know that you're one of the few people that has a family also on council, and you're running a company. So
Busy. So,
I get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Andrew, thanks. I appreciate it.
okay.